All right, let's welcome P-Quad. Woo! Are we doing this now?
This is your very first speech, so we are going to gift you a shot.
Cheers. Salud. Oh, it's going to be awkward. We're going to have a mic, a clicker. Eat the mic. What? All right, how's everyone doing tonight? You hear me all right? Sometimes I'm a little quiet. So it's probably been a while. My last SecKC meeting was like February 2020. I don't know about you guys. Who went to the picnic last month? Fuck yeah, it was awesome. We got kicked out by the cops, so you know we did good. We stayed too late, and they're like, oh, we got 3 cops on overtime, so get the fuck out. Yeah. All right, so this is my talk about my home lab, my journey. Yeah! And yeah, so if you like software, hardware, networking stuff, you might want to hang out for a second.
Show me your parts.
Let's get started. Well, it's not clicking. Oh, we got it. All right, the gifts are going to come through really good, so that's awesome. So I'm Patrick. I'm a programmer. I work at a small logistics company in town called FreightView. And my first SecKC meeting was probably 3 or 4 years ago. Jigglebilly I used to work with, he dragged me here. And woo! And I'd been messing with microcontrollers and Arduinos and stuff, and he introduced me to the badge pirates. Yeah, exactly. And the next thing I know, we're going to Vegas, and Rickson made some crazy-ass badge with like 400, 650 LEDs or something. I don't know. Oh, here we go. So what is a home lab anyways? Home lab's whatever you want it to be, really. For some people, it's running VMs. For other people, it's running services. For me, I just started a job, and they used Apple hardware, they used command line tools, and Git, and I wasn't familiar with any of this stuff. I came from like a Windows shop where they have GUIs for everything, so I was a little bit of an imposter syndrome. So I wanted to like level up my command line foo, and learn about Git, and learn about stuff, so yeah. Also, I wanted to try to run some of my own services, like we run apps at work. So how hard could it be, right? It's a terrible idea. So if you want to get started, you can use something as simple as like a Raspberry Pi or an old laptop or a computer that you have lying around. Or you can go on eBay and try to scalp some good deals, which we'll talk more about later. Click. So humble beginnings. We started with a Raspberry Pi, of course, for any like hacking project, and I got a external hard drive caddy, and I hooked it up. And the Raspberry Pi, if you don't know, is like a $35 computer. It's like the size of a credit card, and you write an ISO to an SD card, and then you're on your way. So I set it up. I'm in. Now what? We need a project to work on, of course. So we had just had a LAN party, and we were like passing around a USB drive, and it seemed shallow and pedantic to have such basic technology. So let's set up a NAS and share the files. So I hooked up the USB hard drive, and this time I had to learn how to format a hard drive without using a GUI. So fdisk to the rescue, and then make fs to make the partition, and then fs tab to mount the hard drive on boot. So the Raspberry Pi is really great for getting started because you can Google anything and learn how to do it on that system. And it's going to transfer to a lot of other Linux systems. All right, that works. So let's get some more stuff set up on here. So I set up a Pi VPN. You can go to pivpn.io, and they have a shell script. back in the day, it set up OpenVPN. They support WireGuard now. I haven't tried that out yet. WireGuard's the new cool VPN. OpenVPN sucks. Use WireGuard. It's fucking awesome. Oh, sorry. Try to keep it clean. I messed up. What are you doing up here?
Real quick. Patrick is laying down some fucking knowledge bombs right now, and I'm having fucking trouble hearing them because I'm old and I'm deaf. Alright, now, reminder, we don't have a shut the fuck up wall, so the shut the fuck up wall is the fucking door. Alright, so with all due respect, for all us old motherfuckers up in here, either keep your voices down or fucking go outside. I'm sorry, Patrick.
You're good. All right. So then I also set up a Pi-hole, which is a DNS, and it gives you ad blocking. You go in your router, you can change the DHCP settings so the DNS pulls from your Pi-hole, and it will start blocking ads across the whole network, which is awesome. The Pi-hole. You know about that hole. Click. Oh, there we go. All right, so I set all that up and then tried testing it out. I tried doing a speed test over my VPN, and it kind of sucked. Yeah, you're not going to see any of these GIFs, sorry. That's a panda, says all my hopes and dreams. He's got burnt cookies. There's Crazy Charlie trying to explain his stuff. But so basically the problem was USB. It can do like 60 megabytes. This was Pi 3, by the way, not Pi 4. So there's like 60 megabytes a second for the whole bus. The gigabit can do like 100 megabytes a second. The hard drive can do like 100 megabytes a second. So basically there's going to be a lot of contention on the USB. So I wanted to upgrade, basically. I also had problems where like Pi-hole would pause periodically. The whole internet would shut down. Couldn't figure that out. Assumed it was Google Fiber. Of course, it's DNS. It's always DNS. I had crappy SD cards, and you have crappy, yeah, you have USB supplies that suck.
All my homies hate SD cards.
You can get a corrupted SD card, and then you got to start all over. So then you learn to back up your SD cards. DD is great for that. Pipe it into gzip so you get rid of the free space. You know, have like a 32 gig image file. Oh, what else? So it's, maybe I'm doing too much on one little Pi, you know? So let's scale up a little. Let's build a Pi cluster. I got 4 Pis. I put them in a little acrylic rack or whatever. I spread the apps out across them so that one's not doing everything. And around the same time, the Pi 0W came out. So that's like a Raspberry Pi 1, basically, but it's the size of a stick of gum, and it has wireless. So same time, Micro Center is running a sale, where it's $1 per Raspberry Pi 0W per customer per day. So of course, me and my friend Eric did the reasonable thing, and we started going to Micro Center over lunch every day for like weeks at a time, so we had too many pies. Yeah! Exactly, yeah. And so I was looking for a project to do with my Raspberry Pi Zeros, and you can put a camera on them, and then there's this distro called Motion Eye OS that's a like video surveillance thing. It can run on single board computers. It can also act as like a hub for all the other ones to feed back into. So I had all the Pi Zeros set up to like stream. So I put one on the north side of the house, I put one on the south side of the house. The Raspberry Pi Zero comes with this case that's nice, and it has like a hole for the camera. And I 3D printed these mounts to like put them in the windows. It was working great. And then it turns out running a ton of HD streams over the Wi-Fi is not a great idea. You will saturate the Wi-Fi pretty quickly. And my little Google Fiber network box just crapped out. So each one was like doing like 10 megabytes a second. It's Wi-Fi in, which I don't know. Anyways, so.
Sounds like you should upgrade.
Exactly. What are we going to get to next?
More power! Why does your Wi-Fi suck ass?
Click.
Ass-sucking Wi-Fi.
Real quick. Nope. Go back one. This is like Alexa. It says it's a reminder. It's like maybe you need to order more Raspberry Pis. And there's Jean-Luc Picard doing a face palm. This is the Pi 0W. So you can see how tiny it is. That's like a guy's finger. That's the whole thing. So yeah, it's time to level up to improve some stuff. We'd like a better performance on the NAS. Right now we're getting like 30 megabytes a second on the USB drive and the gigabit running at the same time. We need something more deserving of our gigabit connection that's not just going to crap out. We'd like to have a low power draw. One of the cool things about the Pi is it uses 3 watts, so like you hook a battery up to that, it'll run for a while. We'd also like to avoid the all-in-one cheap OEM Wi-Fi router combos. And I need room to expand. I was like daisy chaining switches, which is not what you want to do. And we need something better than managing a bunch of individual Raspberry Pis, because that's a pain. So enter the big boys, Synology, Unify, and Docker. Synology makes NAS systems for small office, home user type setups. Unify makes commercial and prosumer hardware, pretty reasonable prices. Synology supports Docker, so I was installing all this stuff on bare metal, and that became a little bit of an issue. Like, some people want Python 3, some people want Python 2, which is this next KCD comic shows all the crazy Python setups you can have.
Python 2's in the library!
But yeah, so Docker made spinning up apps really easy. There's no dependency conflicts. I was just able to do up, down, tear down an app that's misbehaving, set up a new one. So what apps do I run? So I got Docker going, and I spun up all the apps. So I found this GitHub page that's awesome self-hosted, and it's just a list of open source projects that you can run locally. And then I found this other site, Linux Server IO, where they make custom Docker images for all these open source projects. And so I run Radar and Sonar for media organization. It will like move stuff, name files, name folders, whatever you want basically. It'll also download like subtitles, cover art, stuff for Plex. And then I ran a bunch of, I didn't say I mean you can use them for downloading. I'm not saying I used them for downloading, I'm not saying that. All right, hey, we're all friends here, right? So I had a bunch of containers for the networking stuff. So I had the Unify controller on a container. I had Pi-hole on a container. I had the VPN on a container. Caddy is cool. It's a reverse proxy, and you can set it up. It'll pull down a Let's Encrypt cert, and then it'll reverse proxy all your containers for you, which is awesome. Home Assistant for home automation, obviously. Grafana and Influx for stats and graphs, because you need a cool dashboard. Nextcloud for like cloud storage. Plex and AirSonic for streaming like movies, TV, and music. Transmission for BitTorrent. It's all the things. This is Heimdall. This is like a dashboard for. Yeah, so I'm just downloading Linux distros over BitTorrent with a VPN in Sweden. It's cool. So things are going well. It's time to think about changing everything, because that's what you do. So I started filling up hard drives again and again. I started with 2 terabyte hard drives, went to 4 terabyte hard drives, went to 8 terabyte hard drives, and then that shit gets expensive pretty quick. So we need something a little better than our Synology 2-bay NAS. It runs RAID 1, which will mirror the disk, so I'm only getting like half my capacity. And then the Synology NAS is running out of memory and CPU cycles because I'm running all this crap on it. So we need a more scalable NAS solution. Here's a picture of a cool rack. I will never have one this pretty because I would always tear stuff apart. Yeah, so it's time for a new build basically. Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. Truth be told, I built like 5 or 6 systems this year. I might have a problem, I don't know, we'll see. Jury's still out. So I built a new gaming system for myself. My system was a server workstation motherboard from like 2010. And so I built an AMD Ryzen system for my gaming PC, and I repurposed that old gaming machine as my NAS. I wanted to mess with PCI Express pass-through. This kind of goes in the home lab stuff, like I was experimenting, learning. I wanted ECC and SAS drives for like our true enterprise NAS, basically. And I wanted GPU transcoding for the Plex, because the Synology only had like a Celeron dual core. It would crap out on HD streams. So basically we're gonna need some VMs. This is a picture that says, "Mommy, why is there a server in the house?" Helping your kids understand home servers. So now we have Proxmox, TrueNAS, and PCI Express pass-through. This is like the new software side, basically, that's going to replace technology. So Proxmox is an open source enterprise virtualization environment. It's a lot of words, but basically you can run VMs and containers on it. PCI Express pass-through lets you pass hardware directly into the virtual machine instead of having a virtualized hardware. And TrueNAS is open source, free BSD-based NAS system. You can't see these, but basically, if it's virtualized, it has to go through the hypervisor and the DMA remapper. There's a whole lot of steps in between. You pass it right into the hardware. It goes directly to the guest OS. So you get performance like lower latency, higher performance, and you can do offloading, which is what I want to do. I want to do GPU transcoding. Click. Oh, we got it. So yeah, it's time to buy some more parts, apparently. Mind you, this is over like 2 or 3 years. I didn't just do this all in the last 6 months or whatever and max out my credit card. But so I had this old server platform from 2010, and I bought the parts for cheap. Like, it was $100 for the second best CPU. The first one was like Extreme Edition, which is still going for like $1,000 for some reason. But the next step down was $100 for a pair of CPUs. I got 64 gigs of ECC RAM for like $60, so $1 a gig. I got a Quattro P400 GPU, so most server stuff is passively cooled. I was running in a desktop case or whatever, so the Quattro P400 is nice because it actually has a fan on it. It doesn't need external power. You just put it in, it works. Got an LSI SAS card, because that's what the cool kids were doing. And I got a gigabit card to pass into the NAS, so it wasn't using virtualized Ethernet, basically. And then, you guys remember when I said I wanted a low power NAS? I like this Synology because it was like 15 watts, and the Pi was 3 watts. This is no longer, this is like an order of magnitude more than that. So, new build, who dis? So we installed Proxmox. That works great. It's easy, like spinning up VMs, containers. It's really nice. And then we set up TrueNAS VM in a VM, which you're not supposed to do in production, but I'm not in production, so we don't care about that. And I passed through the RAID card, I passed through the gigabit adapter, and set it all up. And then I mounted my Synology as a network share, and I started rsyncing the data over to my new NAS. I also set up a Windows VM with GPU pass-through passed in. That was a huge pain. So NVIDIA does this cool thing. They don't do it anymore, but when the system boots up, it initializes the GPU. And then when your VM boots up, it initializes again. And their card makes a note of that, and it's like I'm running in a virtualized environment. And it will give you this code 43 in Windows, basically. It won't let you run. So you got to do a bunch of hacks to get around that, which we did, of course. But then we found out, after all the trials and tribulation, that you want Ivy Bridge and Sandy Bridge CPUs, and I had the Westmeyer or whatever, the one before it, which freaking sucked. So we could not game on that. I was trying to build a cloud gaming machine. I had a VPN set up. I wanted to like remote into my network, remote into this VM, and then be able to play games over the internet. This was before Stadia. Like, I'm not going to tote my own horn, but I was ahead of the curve a little bit. And so that didn't work, so we scrapped that, and we set up a Linux VM, we passed the GPU pet through, don't have to do any of these weird Windows hacks, and it all worked. And I was able to mount the Synology NAS as a share, so I'm not using any, like, it's just for storage now, which is nice, because it was running out of resources, basically. So when it rains, it pours. Everything started to break, basically. My server died, I opened it up, it wouldn't post, it would spin up, it wouldn't post, and this heatsink fell off. And you probably can't see it because it's brick wall, but all this is like super brown. Like, it was suspect as hell. There was nothing right there. It was all wrong, nothing right. So I got a new motherboard. Guess what? It supports even more RAM. We're gonna need that. So then I bought more RAM, and then I'm like, well, we got the good CPU, we got the good RAM. Might as well, and I noticed I had I bought 12 gigabit per second SAS drives, but I only got a 6 gigabit per second RAID card. You're gonna want 12 gigabits. You're gonna need all those bits. So we bought that, and then I bought 4 more. I was like, oh, the system's all kitted out. Might as well finish the build and finish out the hard drives. So I bought 4 more 8 terabyte hard drives. That was expensive. If you or a loved one notice any of these symptoms, they might be a data hoarder too. Yeah, you guys know what I'm talking about. So the current status, the new board died. I hooked up all the drives, and it just crapped out. And I don't know what's wrong with it. IPMI doesn't have any errors for me to follow up on. So maybe buying old server hardware off eBay for really cheap prices is not the best idea. I don't know. Maybe that's obvious to some of you. I don't know. And then maybe this is what I get for buying cheap parts, you know? Damn it.
In the room, do you have carpet or is it a hardwood floor?
It's in the basement. It's neither. So I have a new build going now. It's not assembled yet. I'm way ahead of time. I'm running off the Synology again, so that saved me. Have a backup, basically. Well, so let's do a retrospective really quick. Raspberry Pi is awesome for learning Linux. You can like set it up headless. You can give it Wi-Fi creds and SSH into it with default creds. Run your commands, see what happens. Break it, reflash it, go again. Synology is a pretty decent NAS system. My uptime alone, it saved me more times than I would like to admit. Unify makes pretty decent networking gear. So the cool thing about Unify is all their stuff was separated out. They'd have switches, they'd have access points, and they'd have controllers. The controller would be like smart enough to tell your phone, hey, I'm switching to channel 4, when really channel 4 is the next access point down the hallway. So you get these seamless handoffs on Wi-Fi. And Docker made it easy to spin up apps. I had like, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 apps running at the time. Proxmox is really cool for spinning up VMs, testing out new stuff. TrueNAS is pretty cool. I need to mess with it more and validate. They do a bunch of crazy stuff on the TrueNAS side that I don't know about yet. One cool thing about TrueNAS is it uses ZFS, which is, yeah, you like that? Sun Microsystems for the win. So you get a bunch of cool features. You get storage pooling, so you can just add disks to a pool. You get data verification, so it knows like the hash of every file, I'm assuming. And so it can tell, like, if you just have RAID and you have a corrupted file, it's just going to copy the corrupted file to the other disk, and you're screwed still. This actually will know the file is corrupted and be able to repair it. There's also a copy on write, so anytime you make a change to a file, it will make a copy of that, put the changes in that one, which also gives you snapshots. So you can do like Windows previous version and see all the versions of a file. Self-hosting is pretty cool. If you guys don't, you should check it out. So I was on like a anti-cloud kick at the time. Like the whole internet's getting decentralized basically. It's all Google, Microsoft, Apple, and I don't know, Amazon, yeah. Basically if AWS US East goes down, everyone's fucked. That's what the deal is. But so I wanted to my friend told me that I was asking my friends what self-hosting means to them. And my friend said that self-hosting to him was digital sovereignty, basically. You get to run your own apps, you own your own data, it's yours, instead of all. Oh, yeah. So, you want to know how I fill up hard drives? You can get a mirror of Wikipedia, that's like 100 gigs compressed. You can get a mirror of OpenStreetMaps for the whole world. Yeah, no, people ask me why, don't worry. Why not, is what I say. So, I mean, a lot of this was just learning stuff. Like, I downloaded the OpenStreetMaps because at work we got hit up by Google for Google Maps for like 20 grand to do fucking maps or whatever. It's like, yeah. So we tried to spin up some open source stuff. Ultimately, it was easier for us to go with Google. But I learned how to import like GIS data into Postgres, so that was cool. Old server hardware is not cool. Buy semi-recent stuff. Don't buy 10-year-old hardware. It's probably on the way out. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I learned a ton of things. Like PCI Express pass-through is really cool. Proxmox is cool. Yeah, I already went over that. It's just good stuff. I'm learned now, basically. So if I had to do it all over again, I wouldn't buy old hardware. But if I had like my dream setup, it'd be 3 Proxmox nodes in a cluster. Do is do share between your Proxmoxes, and then basically if a VM or a node dies, it'll just migrate that workload to another node. So you get high availability, which is a problem I ran into. I would also have a TrueNAS system just for storage, basically to separate out compute and storage. And I would have a backup system, which right now is like my Synology. It worked out for that. And RAID's not a backup. Have a backup. Starting over is not fun. And Synology saved me a couple times. And also stick to a budget. I don't know if it. Yeah, I don't know if you noticed. But I kind of went in, I was like, oh, $50 make you holler. And like the CPUs were $50, the RAM was a little over $50. The next thing you know, you're in pretty deep. And then your server dies and you have this sunken cost fallacy where you're like, do I just keep buying more hardware? Yeah.
More hardware for the
No. But yeah, so basically, I don't know. Yeah, so that was the other reason why I wanted to run. That's why the Synology is cool to me. So you asked about electricity. Basically, these old servers draw a lot more electricity than new ones too. And if you kit them out like I did, they're going to draw even more. So Synology is cool because it drew 15 watts, which the Pi drew 3 watts, which I have light bulbs that draw more than 3 watts. So it was like a 5x step up to the Synology. So that was like a good upgrade path for me. And then I just kind of I was chasing the dragon basically. I wanted more speed, more hardware, and I started buying stuff. And then you end up in a hole, basically. And I think that's it. I think I'm 5 minutes early. We'll see. You guys have any questions for me? Yeah, you can download RAM as a zip file. You just put that in your downloads and it'll be faster. So that's actually a good question. How do you tunnel traffic? So I have this stuff pointed at my house. You actually don't want to do that. That's actually not good. So there's a cool trick you can do where you do a reverse VPN basically. You set up a node in AWS or Google Cloud. It VPNs back to your house. It has the reverse proxy. And it's basically serving up all the traffic from your home, but it's not your home IP that they're hitting. What else you got for me? Bring it. How do I implement what? That's for another talk, I think. Eric. How come I didn't use Kubernetes? Kubernetes is a wall of text that's called a YAML that is insane, and nobody should use it. I'm just kidding. I don't know Kubernetes. It scares me. I've seen people set up Raspberry Pi clusters with Kubernetes. It works pretty good for them. I feel like I'd run into the same problem though, where the hardware would basically be the limitation. The Raspberry Pi is great for learning on, but it's basically like a embedded SoC or like a phone SoC. It's not meant for like gigabits of traffic being thrown at it all the time. Says Aaron, you gonna save me? Let me talk. Yeah. Sorry, what was that? Yeah, so one of the things I liked about Synology was the Celeron processor supported AES-NI, which is a new instruction set for AES, Advanced Encryption Standard. And it basically takes 8 instructions to 1. And so if you're running, so one of the problems I had with the Pi VPN was it's not super fast at cryptographic operations. So I threw a gigabit at it, and the USB pegged out, the CPU pegged out, wasn't ideal. But then the Synology was able to handle most of that traffic, I would say. Also, the Synology, you can upgrade the RAM on. It comes with like 2 gigabits. I open it up. It's a SODIMM slot, put in 8 gigabits. It's like, way better. You can run a lot more apps that way.
Tell them what Proxmox
I don't know why Proxmox is cooler than ESXi. I'm guessing because it's open source.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah, so all those projects I was running are open source projects. I can't.
Fuck licenses.
Yeah.
He's a pirate. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know how hard it is to pirate Kickstarter?
Yeah. Thank you.